Hi, I'm Kevin Thuesen and I manage the water quality protection lands for the City of Austin, Austin Water. Today we're going to be taking you on a guided hike of the Parkhouse tract. This is one of the guided hikes the Water Quality Protection Lands puts on with some frequency, allows folks who live in Austin and folks who don't live in Austin to come out and experience wildlands like you see behind you. Really undeveloped land, and you could almost see from the side of the horizon to the other side of it, almost undeveloped. This is a real good visual of some of the conservation successes we've had here with the City of Austin and our partners. On the hike today, we're going to see grassland savanna, and even closed canopy woodlands as we go down into this valley. We're going to see some really neat geology with the Glen Rows, where it kind of make these benches that comes down. That's part of a lot of the contributing zone for the Barton Springs segment of the Edwards Aquifer. And this is part of the lands that citizens voted to protect when they started passing bonds for the water quality protection lands in 1998. So here we are, we have a great view behind us of these hills, and you kind of see this jagged scar going across the land. This is kind of a relic of when this place was planned for development. They tried planning it, but you gotta get a sense there's a lot of hills and dales back here. It's a very difficult place to develop. They would have needed several bridges, so the finances never worked out, and that's why it fell into foreclosure. Later, it allowed us to purchase it at a much lower cost, but our goal here is to keep it undeveloped. So it's interesting that if we were to go back to the early days of settlement and the Anglo settlement and the conquest, since then there's never been a house built on this tract. If we look at prehistory with Native Americans and indigenous folks here, they almost certainly lived here and they almost certainly had some sort of homes here. But since settlement era, there's never been a home, and it is the goal of the water quality protection lands to keep these lands undeveloped. So in perpetuity, for the rest of time, our goal is to keep this place in its undeveloped state. That natural state allows all these natural resources to work like they've always worked, to sequester carbon, to allow high quality water to run off, fill the streams, and cross the recharge zone. That's exactly what we want to keep happening here. One of the other benefits we get from managing and protecting this place using ecological restoration is we can really get back that biodiversity that's been missing as this place is set more idle, waiting to be developed. That's one thing we'll see more of as we go, though. So to our left out here, we can see some of the restoration work we did around 2006. So it's almost 14, 15 years old. And here you can see what we did was basically we cut juniper where the juniper was fairly sparse. We kept this grassland on the banks, but where the woody density was sufficient to be golden cheek warbler habitat, or where the density was larger than our cutting size, we left those trees. So on top of the hilltops, it's all still closed canopy woodlands. So what we see here is some of the restoration of this old road, that big scar we saw earlier. We worked with one of our famous or infamous volunteers, Sally Wolf, on this project, and she basically laid out some of these cut pieces of juniper perpendicular to the road so that it would slow the water that basically was using that road to funnel like a creek, and it would cut this road, and it kept it from restoring back to its native condition. So with this, she was able to slow that water down, drop out the sediment, and then reseeded behind it. As you can see, you can't even tell there's much of a road here anymore, whereas before it was that jagged white scar across the landscape. So fortunately, we've had probably between 8 and 10 years for this stuff to kind of passively recover with just the initial placement of these boards with some rebar of these pieces of juniper. The juniper tends to be long lasting even on the ground, so it survived really well. And we're really seeing exactly what we want. We were having trouble just finding this road back today, and that is precisely where we want this road to be. Gone, taken back over by native grasses where they can start sequestering carbon and stop shedding sediment into our otherwise pristine creeks here. So this is a really cool success, a really neat example of how you can put in some effort on the front end of a restoration and yield the benefits on the back end of that restoration 5, 10, even 15 years later. So this is one of the ephemeral or kind of rarely running creeks on Parkhouse. It's really nice today because we had a rain just a couple days ago, but it was a really big downpour. But these down cuttings in the land sometimes reveal more than just a creek bed and some cool vegetation. On a private conservation easement, we've actually seen seams of basalt coming through. That basalt is what we frequently would call magma, where like a volcano or something is pushing through the ground. We can think of St. Edward's University on a big hill downtown Austin is sitting on one of those big volcanic-like igneous rock formations. So we've never looked here for it, but we know we found it you know, not more than a half-mile away. So this is one of the places it would be cool to look, because there's some nice down cutting to see if we've crossed into any of that, that old magma or basalt. So at the end of the day, this is what we're interested in. Clean, high quality water coming out of the landscape. So we're not really doing anything with infrastructure here. We're really just keeping these natural ecosystems functioning naturally. And what do they produce? Clear, high quality water. In this case, on a hot day, nice, cool, high quality water. So this is the whole story of our lands, and we don't always get to show it in one day, but on today's hike we were able to really see those hard lands, the jagged scar that it cut through, the ecological restoration that have been applied to these landscapes to help keep them in one piece, to help keep those natural systems functioning. But this is the ultimate payoff, is the water quality that's been coming out of this spring for centuries, if not millennium, is still functioning today like it always has, producing high quality, beautiful water.